Hi, good afternoon. This is the lecture for April 20th, and we will be in our grammar book on we'll start on page 76, which is Unit 7, and we're going to be talking about imperatives, which are commands in English. I'll write this on our board here. Okay. So imperative equals command. Oops. And also suggestions with let's, why don't we? All right, so even though the first part, page 76 and 77, are not assigned, this reading will be very good to put these things in context. Okay, so I recommend that you read it. Now there's 3 different forms that this chapter talks about. The first form is, so 2 and 3. Okay, the first form is called the imperative. Okay, basically these are commands. You're telling someone to do something. Okay, so for example, turn off the light. Okay, oftentimes commands come with an exclamation point when you're writing. So turn off the light. Now, what you need to discover here is the grammar. Now, do you see a subject in the sentence? If your answer is no, you're right. Do you see a verb? Yes, turn is the verb. Okay, now the subject of this sentence is implied. When you are giving a command, you automatically assume that the subject is you. So this command is basically you turn off the light. We just do not use the you because it is implied. We already know that this is, that you is who we're talking to in the sentence. Okay, let's do another one. Sorry, eraser. Check on your grandmother. Okay, so go check on your grandmother. Let's say you're at home and your mother is finished cooking dinner and she asks you to do this. Okay, this is also a command asking you to do something, but in a command form. And the same thing as this here, we have a verb, which is go, but no subject. Okay. All right, now as you can see, this verb is in the base form of the verb. Okay, we don't change it in any way in a command. It's just the base form. Okay. So that is the first thing, and this is called an imperative that this chapter talks about. The next thing is a suggestion. Okay, and the next 2 are suggestions. Okay, so we often use let's. Okay. Okay, so for example, let's go to Maria's party. Okay, now this scenario, this sentence, let's go to Maria's party, would happen, maybe a group of friends are together and they decide They're discussing what to do. Okay, maybe one person will say, let's go to Maria's party. Maybe another person would say, no, let's go out to eat. Okay, so basically let here is like let us. Okay, so this let's here is like is let us. Okay, so basically you're saying we should go to Maria's party, or we should go out to eat, something like that. Okay, so we use this a lot in English. Let's look at this, let's do that, let's go see a movie. Okay, we use it a lot. Okay, these are all in your book, by the way, page 78. Okay, I'm just trying to give you some more context. Another thing we use for suggestions, this is also suggestions, okay, is why don't we ... or why don't you, or you could even say why don't I. Okay, so we can talk about suggestions here. All right, so for example, why don't we, okay, and we can finish the sentence. Let's say there are students who are friends and they need to study for an exam. So they might say something like, why don't we get some coffee, for example. So they're about to study for an exam, and one student might say, well, why don't we get some coffee so that it's easier for us to study? Okay. One student might ask the other student, why don't you turn to page, 78. Okay, so another student could say, why don't you turn to page 78? By the way, these are all questions, sorry. So there should be a question mark at the end. Okay, another one. Why don't I read the instructions for everyone, maybe? Okay, why don't I read the instructions for everyone? Okay. All right, so these are suggestions as well. You could also say, instead of why don't we get some coffee, you could say we should get coffee first. Something like that. Or why don't you turn to page 78? You could say, could you turn to page 78? Okay, why don't I read the instructions? I can read the instructions. So this is just a polite way to ask. Why don't we, or you, or I? Okay, so that's kind of like a polite form. All right. I hope this makes sense in the lecture today. We will be practicing some of this. So I'll see you later on today and we'll talk. All right. Have a good evening. Bye.